Hello, everyone. This is Chris from Career Services. Very pleased to give you a presentation today on resumes. I want you to see that in the top right-hand side of the slide deck, I have my camera icon here. So I've got it there in case you decide that you want to snap a picture of any of the slides. Just a reminder that that option is available to you. To begin the presentation today, I'd like to ask a question, and that question is on average, how much time does an employer spend reviewing a resume? And the answer to that question is somewhere between 5 and 30 seconds. Employers will emphasize a resume and other documents that you submit to see if your education and experience is better than other candidates. It does create a first impression. I'll let you know that some employers will use these documents as a mechanism to determine what type of products that you're going to ultimately wind up turning into them. So you want to be certain that that document is creating a good first impression. It should be focused. It should speak to what you're capable of doing. And it needs to be able to do both of those things in a way that as someone looks over it in the neighborhood of 5 to 30 seconds, they can very quickly ascertain those things. You can improve your odds by using the resources that are available that we provide at Career Services. We have a couple of websites that I'm going to share with you at the end of the presentation that you'll find useful. You should proofread your resume. You're going to want these resumes to be as close to perfect as you can get them. And the other thing that you want to do is you want to revise it. And a great rule of thumb for that is to sleep on it. So complete the resume, sleep on it overnight, take a look at it in the morning, and then get it out the door the day after you create it. You can bring your resume in to Career Services for a review. So we're doing those over Zoom right now. And that has actually facilitated some pretty great discussions because we can share the screen and basically fix it together and collaborate on it in real time. The other thing that you want to do is if you are applying to a job that has a job description, you need to tailor that resume to that job description. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time later on talking about that. Some general resume tips. Keep in mind that there really is no such thing as a perfect resume. These things are almost always a work in progress. And so this is a working document. What some people find is that as they apply to different positions that are advertised, that one resume that you submit may look entirely different than a resume that you submit to for a different job. And the reason why is because that document is really emphasizing different elements of your expertise. Another great recommendation, and this is a Department of Labor best management practice, is to create a master resume that you could potentially pull accomplishment statements from. And the way a master resume works is it's effectively a catalog, if you will. It has all the accomplishment statements that you've ever submitted for any job out there. And so what you'll find is that over time, that document increasingly grows longer and longer and longer as you add more bullets to it. But what it allows you to do is to apply to jobs faster and faster because you're able to create resumes that use accomplishment statements in a way that you may have used them in the past. And so that master resume is really for your eyes only, but it's a great idea to go ahead and to capture everything therein. When we start talking about a resume, what you want to do again is to create a very focused document that's very easy to navigate. And the document that you see on the right here is a great example of that. Obviously, you need to include your name on that resume, as well as some contact information so prospective employers could potentially get in touch with you if they need to, right? In years past, we typically started these out with an objective statement. That is largely given away to something called a summary statement here, which is what this student has entered. The next most relevant thing on that document, and as you go through this document, think about things in terms of priority, and the highest priority things need to go up top. And then as you go through the document, although those elements are important, they just aren't quite as high of a priority. So the most highest priority on here is your education. So you should definitely list that. The next relevant piece of information is your relevant experience, right? Your professional experience related to this particular line of work. So you can see that what this student has done is they've split these out into two different sections. And so this student has an internship and co-op experience section. They have that experience listed. And then what they've gone in and done is to list their project experience. And you may have picked this up in enterprise. They may even be coursework projects, senior design, but you can see that that information is there. So to an employer, the most important thing is the education and the internship and the co-op experience. If you don't have that, no big deal. You can go ahead and you can list that as project experience. What some students find is that they want to combine those two sections. And so what you could potentially do is call it relevant experience. The next important thing is computer and technical skills. It may be that you have field skills. It may be that you have lab skills. It may be that you have visual performing arts skills. It may be that you have analytical skills. So whatever you need to make that heading entitled to so that it matches your major, go ahead and do that. The other thing that you'll find as you start to read through job descriptions, and even if you're not necessarily applying to a position with a job description, when we start talking with employers, they're really looking for great teammates. And great teammates have engaged in some leadership activities, and they are also involved in the local community. And so what this student has done is listed a leadership section as well as a co-curricular involvement section. You could potentially lump those together into something called leadership and community involvement, depending on what you have, but just a couple different options for you. You're going to see that this student has a work history section in here. That work history section, as we talked about a little bit earlier, isn't quite as high of a priority because it doesn't pertain to the position. However, it's still important to list that stuff here because it does showcase that you have some transferable skills. And then the other thing is that a lot of recruiters absolutely love to think about students that are putting themselves through school. And so you should list that as well. And then go ahead and end the document with some of your interests listed there. Kind of puts a human touch on things, and it may be a catalyst for some great conversation. So these are the different components of a resume. Again, those section headers are fluid, so you can change those. I like this document. It's very easy to get through. It's easy to navigate. The section headers are in upper cases. They're underlined. There's an abundance of white space in here that allows the reader to potentially get through it very quickly, and yet it still has all the relevant experience in there. This year, we also created a first-year student template, and you can find these templates on the Michigan Tech Career Services website. And again, I'll end the presentation with those resources for you. But the first-year resumes are really going to be a hybrid between both college and high school. And so what this student has done is they've started with a summary. They've gone ahead and they listed their education, but they also had to list their high school experience in here as well. So this student has had some professional experience, particularly related to the major, even when they were in high school. So they went ahead and they listed it. They picked up some technical skills, some pretty strong leadership skills, particularly while they were in high school. And this is really why you need to kind of create this kind of hybrid resume as a first-year student. You'll see that this student has some community involvement. If you're paying very close attention to this document, you'll see that the student has misspelled the word involvement there. So that's something to watch out for. But they've gone ahead and they've listed it. They've got their work history as well as their interests listed in here. So again, a great resume that's very easy to navigate. Plenty of white space, still very focused. I could get through this document somewhere between 5 and 30 seconds. In this year, I can tell that this is a first-year student. They've just have graduated from high school. Meanwhile, they still have some killer professional experience out there. And this is a pretty great resume as well. As you complete the semester and as you think about these things over time, you definitely want to add new skills that you gain. And so if you've been involved with projects, internships, or co-ops, or any leadership positions, you definitely want to go ahead and get those things annotated on the resume and go ahead and get that resume updated. As you do these, I've got a writing prompt here that you may find helpful. Again, with my camera icon in the top right-hand side of the slide deck, if you want to snap a picture of it. But this is a writing prompt that'll help you to develop those accomplishment statements that you see on the resume. And this page in particular is got a pretty useful exercise that can help you develop those. So just a resource for you. And again, I've got a link at the end of the website where you could potentially find this resource in case you want to use it. But after you write up those accomplishment statements, you're going to go ahead and you're going to put them in the section where those should be. And so you can see here an example of those accomplishment statements: analyze performance and customer feedback, company design rules, material properties, optimal interference, supplier input, assembly features, visual appeal, and usability. You may be that you created some of these in projects, and so you've gone ahead and listed those down here. Or even if you were involved with some leadership activities that you need to add, you can do those down in the leadership section. I'll create a distinction here between two different types of resumes. And as you're reading this, if you are preparing a resume for a career fair, you are preparing a resume for what I call a type one resume, which really represents about 80% of the job market. And what people find very surprising about these is that they're not actually posted anywhere. In some instances, these are internal hires. And if you ask, hey, how'd you find that job? What you'll kind of be told is, I knew someone on the inside. Jobs such as these arise because of your professional network. And certainly when you attend a career fair, you're really meeting a lot of folks. Those positions aren't necessarily being advertised anywhere, but what you're doing is you're creating a relationship with someone, and they're inviting you to apply. And so again, that's just a great place to potentially find these. Some other students find that they'll develop that professional network through industry days, through information sessions, particularly if they have guest speakers in some of their classrooms. If you ever have that happen, follow up with them, send them an email, get connected with them over LinkedIn, and stay in touch with them. We usually recommend that students stay in touch with members of their professional network once a semester and then during the summer as well. And you're just basically providing an update for the type of projects that you're working on. If you get a chance to travel to any conferences, even if those conferences are online, and if you get an opportunity to meet with the speaker, recommend that you reach out to those folks and stay in touch with them. And so what will happen over time is you will develop a professional network. You're periodically checking in, and the day may come when you start to ask them for informational interviews, get an idea of the type of skill sets that they're looking for their particular company, and then potentially find positions as a result of having that large professional network. But when you go to create these resumes, it's really creating a resume from your point of view. So you're thinking through this and saying, here's my education, here are some different accomplishment statements based on an internship, a co-op, some project experience. You're listing your skill set down. It may be that you have leadership, community involvement, some other work history that you put in there, but it's really from your perspective. I'll create a distinction between that and a type 2 resume here in a section, but here are just some examples of what some of those type 1 resumes may look like, again, from the ground up, right? And so these are all examples that we have on our resources on our website. And so again, I'll show you that URL at the end of the presentation. But you can see this is a great resume, very easy to decipher, very easy to navigate. This one's a little bit more difficult. You can see that you can still see the sections, but they just don't pop out. So it doesn't have as much white space in it. A little bit more difficult to navigate, especially very quickly. So something to consider there. Another example, this one's a little bit better, a little bit more white space, easy to see how things kind of track within the document, but again, can be a little bit difficult, could be made a lot easier to navigate simply by underlining things and putting lines through it just to kind of create that. Here's another one, a very good use of white space, so very easy to interpret what I'm looking at here with Tom's student, and a great one with some different section headers in there. And then the final one as well from Susie's student. Again, there's a lot more information in this, a little bit more difficult to gather kind of what she's driving at here, but still has a lot of great information. But like I said, if that's the type 1 resume from kind of the ground up from your point of view, When you go to create a resume based on a job description that you see, these are a little bit different. So these are posted positions. When you ask folks, hey, how did you get that job? They'll inevitably tell you, I saw a job and I applied for it. Great resources for these are in Handshake, LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor. And really, when you go to create these resumes, you're creating this from their point of view. And just to kind of highlight what I mean by that, I pulled a job description from Grossman Forestry Company, and you can see here that the duties have been transcribed word for word onto the right side of the slide here, as well as who they're looking for, and again, who they're going to give preference to and what those prereqs look like. And those are quoted directly from it. On the next slide, I've transcribed the stuff that was on the right side to the left. And then what this student has done is they have derived a handful of accomplishment statements based on the job description. And you're really answering these in the words of the job description itself. And so, and a couple of examples here is marking of hardwood and pine. The student claimed to have marked 3,000 acres of northern hardwood and jet pine forests. The job description is you're doing this to prescription for timber sales. And so what the student has said is, I've finalized timber sales valued at $250,000. And then the job description also, you're going to be doing this to cruise timber. So the student claims to have cruised 10,000 acres of timber in 4 upper Midwest states. And so you can see these accomplishment statements, they follow an algorithm, if you will. There's an action verb. Things have been quantified, but they're by and large using the terminology used in the job description. Similarly, based on who the job description was looking for, completed summer camp, and the student said, I completed a fall camp in 2017, and they want you to have at least 1 summer of field experience. Well, this student just says that they have 3 summers of field experience, right? And so if I were a committee member tasked with hiring based on the job description that we saw on the previous slide, based on these elements here, and I received a resume that had these accomplishment statements written down in the relevant experience section, or maybe even in the summary for these elements down here, it would be very easy for me to say, this is a qualified person. They can clearly communicate very effectively. And I would pick up on the fact that you have the qualifications that I'm looking for very quickly, because this is a very focused document. And so this is what I mean about creating accomplishment statements couched in terms of the job description. After you add these to your resume, and it may be that you remove other elements from the resume so that these all fit, but this is speaking directly to the job description, I would then take each of these accomplishment statements, upload them into my master resume. And then if I needed to create a resume very quickly in the future based on those types of accomplishment statements, I could then mine that document for stuff that I had done in the past, right? And that's the purpose of that master document. But this is what I mean by a tailored resume. It's really for type 2. It's a type 2 resume based on a job description that you see out there. If you have questions, we encourage you to schedule an appointment with us in Career Services over Handshake. This is really our front door. It contains our availability. We are meeting with students over Zoom. We can get a lot of great information shared with you that way. It really allows us to collaborate on documents such as resumes. And so we encourage you to use this resource. Other resources that you may want to take a look at in addition to Handshake, a lot of our resumes, there are templates out there that you can download as Word documents and just modify the template. We're trying to make life easy for you. There are examples in there. We have some of our recruiters who show up. We've got some recordings that will tell you what they're looking for in their terms. And then if you want to go back and take a look at that writing prompt, that'll help you write those accomplishment statements. Those are listed here as well. And I've got the URL for that as well. That concludes the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call.